So welcome back, everybody. This is going to be a fun little episode right here, and one that was driven by you. So to start with, you see I just added an additional panel to my solar array out here that's feeding my off-grid wood processing shop, the chop shop we call it. So the reason I added another panel is because I made a mistake that I'm going to teach you about. If you're here learning about some solar, this is good discussion that we need to have. I messed up and this system wasn't working properly for me. But what today's video is ultimately about, and I want you to stick around for, is these are bifacial panels. I'll show you what that means here just in a second. Y'all had a lot of intrigue with this and some suggestions on how we increase the reflectivity behind these panels. That's what you do with a bifacial panel, and potentially gain or increase output of them. And I want to see if we can do this on the cheap. All right, so let's dive right into it. There's a little bit to learn here. I'm eager to learn myself and to share it with you. So these panels are from a company called EcoWorthy. This is their 195 watt panel, and this is a bifacial panel. We need to talk about some of these specs here in a second because that's where I messed up. So what does bifacial mean? The majority of people buy small panels like this that just collect light from the front. The back side is well whited out, matted out. There's a covering over it. However, if we come around to the back side of these panels, they are exposed. They can collect light from either side. This is pretty unique, but there are a lot of panels out there like that. But the majority of what people are buying only collect light from one side. So here's the thing about a bifacial panel. You need reflectivity of sunlight from the backside. Well, you're not really going to get that over grass and shadowed area like this. Horrible day to test too, by the way, complete cloud cover. So this video is going to go over a few days while we test this theory out. So think about this, if I had these mounted on concrete, which a lot of you will, even maybe a deck with some reflectivity, what if there was a house wall over here that was painted? All these things help. So I had a viewer ask, what if you take some of this white rock that you have back here, landscaping rock, and landscape this area? I was already planning on doing that anyways because I don't want to have to come back here and do weed eating and potentially damage my panels. I want to keep this mostly weed free. So we need to put a little border around, put some rock back here. Well, white rock should offer some reflectivity. It's not the world's best, but what will it gain us? We're going to find that out. Plus, that'll give you a general idea of what if you had this mounted on the concrete, or again, that painted wall of a house back there. Anything that reflects light back. Then I had a couple other viewers say, hey, what about if you did something reflective, like say some sort of insulation, like foam insulation? Well, I got to thinking, I used to use bubble wrap insulation right here in our camper when we lived in it full time. This stuff is very cheap and reflects really well. So I bought a roll in. We're gonna see if we can potentially put a very shiny surface behind this. We'll build a cheap wood frame or something like that. We're about to go dig through my scrap pile, and let's see if we can put something reflective behind it. I imagine that's gonna work the best of anything we try, and see what kind of output we can get for about $12 of investment and some scrap lumber. All right, so that's what we're about to dive into after I explain why I added another panel here and give you a tidbit of information of where I messed up, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. So let's take a look at our panels. I mentioned this in the last episode where I built this frame and mount right here. By the way, I just added an additional frame to a mount not designed for it. I don't recommend you do that. I took that risk on my own. Everything looked very well supported though. So whenever we take a look at our specs up here, this is very important when we're matching it up to our inverter. I typically always go with the max open circuit voltage. This gives me a little bit of a buffer. This is open circuit, as in not connected, not actually powering up your inverter. Well, max power voltage is 19.8, but I typically use the higher number just to give me a safety factor and buffer in. And that's because a lot of inverters have a very low high-end cap on voltage. Just depends on whether you're running a portable power station, a big on-the-wall inverter. They all take different voltages. So I just give myself a safety buffer. Well, I'm about to show you my inverter here. I thought had an minimum of 80 volts of requirement in order to kick on, sense, and start powering up. Well, that's partially correct. I read that in the book, but it has another operating voltage, and we weren't quite meeting it with 4 panels. We were hitting around 89 to 91 volts. It bounces back and forth based on the ambient temperature out here, where the sun's at, all that kind of stuff. And I was kicking the inverter on, kicking it off, kicking it on, and I was never pulling full voltage or wattage from these panels right here. So by adding another panel, well, that increased me another, well, roughly 20 volts up, and now we're well above the minimum for my inverter, and that'll get us through some of these odd cloudy days as well. I'd like to add an additional panel down the road as I save a little more money. I just bought this one off of Amazon because they had it $45 off, so I snatched it up. We've talked about this a lot, but let's quickly recap on how you wire these panels up. There's a few different ways you can do it. I'm not going in great detail because we've covered it so many times on the channel. But one way is called series. I need to get my voltage up, as we just explained, because I have a large inverter that senses, well, a large minimum voltage. So by taking a positive and a negative off of two separate panels, connecting them together, this is called series. This leaves your amperage the same. These are 10 amp panels as seen on the sticker up here, and takes that 20 volts right there and now goes up to 40 volts. And if we hook a positive and negative to the next panel, we go to 60 volts, 80 volts, 100 volts. Now you're going to see some fluctuations again, time of day, cloud shadowing effect, temperature, all that good stuff. And long story short, you're left with one positive on one end, one negative on the other end. Our wires that's coming out of the ground, we connect to that. So since we just added in another panel right here, let's go ahead and disconnect the wire. Let me show you how we're going to go up another 20 volts. So now we'll take the positive from this new panel, connect that. All right, and we'll hook it up to our negative wire going into the building. So now we've just basically daisy chained every panel together. You could hook positives and positives together, negatives and negatives together with a bunch of Y adapters. That brings your amperage up. Not what we're wanting. We need voltage up, so our inverter in that building over there senses and kicks on. All right, let's connect up this other side here and go take a look at everything. So I'm not expecting much. There is no sun today, very cloudy. We'll test all that when the sun comes out. But even with it being this cloudy, we should now have voltage coming over here. Let's see what it is. Curious to see. A little cool today, that helps, but no sun. All right, so we come in here and take a look at our equipment. We're pulling 101 volts in. That sounds about exactly right, and that's above the 90 volt minimum, but only pulling 122 watts. And that makes sense. There is absolutely no sunlight out there, so I'm happy to even see that amount. You need to check your solar charger or inverter. If it's an all-in-one unit, that's a solar charger in there. See what your sensing voltage is. That's where I messed up. I looked at my manual. My particular unit requires 80 volts sensing, and then I read a little further down after I ordered everything in, and it requires a minimum of 90 volts with a plus or minus window in there to operate, to actually kick on and fully operate. Well, I was just like literally 1 volt below that amount, and then I'd bump up a volt or two above and it would kick on, try to charge, and I knew I'd messed up because I had read the 80 volts for sensing, not the actual operating voltage. Yours is going to vary based on your solar charging parameters. Check that. Tell you what, it's kind of nerve-wracking dumping buckets full of rocks around your brand new solar panels, but looks like everything worked out. And you notice as I dug into the rock pile over here, the rocks are damp and really dark. So it's good that I'm gonna do this and test over the next few days, because I need this rock to dry out. That's when it'll become the white top that you see instead of this darker color that's not gonna reflect light as well. All right, so it's taken me many days to get this point that we can actually do a little testing. It has rained and rained and rained and been overcast. Not a cloud in the sky today, the perfect day to do a little testing. What we're not focusing on today is what's the full output here. I want to see the reflectivity and if bifacial panels really work. So that means we're gonna run this test over a few hours, so outputs are gonna change. We just wanna see no reflection versus reflection, what we're actually gonna get here. Now pay attention to the time of the day. The sun is close to being out in front of the panels. It's off this way just a little. You can see we're getting some reflection from the wood, from the rocks up front, and some reflectivity back here. But you're not getting much reflectivity back here. You're getting a shadowing effect from the panels themselves. But as the sun moves toward the afternoon, guess what? It's gonna shine underneath, reflect the rocks behind it. There's more reflectivity here. So your results are going to vary based on the time of day, the angle to the sun of the reflective surface. So keep that in mind. But since we have a good base right here, no clouds, let's go ahead. I'm just going to put cardboard all around these panels, but I'm not going to shade the panels. We're going to block the rocks, the reflection of the wood, and anything else going on right here. And we're going to run inside, see what the output of the panels are. Then I'm going to come back out, remove all of that, and allow the reflectivity of the ground, the wood, the rocks, everything else to hit the back side of the panels and everywhere else that it's hitting. And then let's see what kind of increase we get, if any. Now you can see we're not doing anything crazy professional here. I just got some big pieces of cardboard that happens to block the entire back side. I'm making for sure there is no shadowing or shading effect from the cardboard impacting the panels. There's not, because the sun's this direction. So we could block it up 100% light tight. This is just going to get us close and get us some results. All right, so we're blocked all the way around. Yes, there could be some minor reflection coming off the cardboard in a couple sections, but we've got the majority of the area shaded out underneath. No light can come in from behind the panels. Let's just do a quick test here. You're not going to be doing something like this. This looks crazy, but this is going to get us some results, hopefully. What I'm far more concerned about is, well, truly reflective stuff like that insulation that we're going to try. But this will give us a good starting point and show if bifacial panels actually do give you some results. All right, so if y'all take a look, the sun is directly behind me, so perfect. No shadowing on this side, no shadowing on the top, bottom, nowhere. All right, so you can see the cardboard is still up over there. Let's see what we're getting. We're pulling in about 650 watts. Hopefully y'all can see that. We're holding very steady around that range. That's pretty good. This is winter time, sun's low in the sky, and it's not the perfect time of day. So I'll take that. I should also mention I have this mount permanent too. It's not at the correct angle for winter time. My panels really should be quite a bit more this direction, and I'd pick up a significant amount, but I'm very happy with what I'm getting. I'm charging my battery every day, and it's covering what I use out here at this shop. But whenever it comes, say, springtime and the sun starts moving higher in the sky, these panels are going to be about perfect where they're at. Whenever it becomes high in the summertime and the sun's back over direct overhead, they're going to be a little off again. A good 45 degrees like this is kind of a good middle ground for how the sun's low in the sky in the winter, high in the sky in the summer. And then now we're just kind of catching everything in between. I'm also curious to try the reflectivity of this cardboard right here, because, well, it could be kind of like a color of a house that people paint. All right, so now we have some rocks shining up front, a little bit of rocks in the back. Again, kind of an odd time of day for good reflectivity, but this should give us some results, I hope. All right, so back in the room, let's take a peek. And we are up about 20 watts and consistently holding with an increase of 20 watts. So we'll crunch some math and see what kind of increase we're seeing. But there's no doubt, just rocks and what's around the panels has given us free power. All right, so we just seen roughly a 2 to 3% increase right there. Nothing significant, but it's holding steady. It's for sure there, just by allowing some natural stuff to shine behind. Now, what if, although this is kind of an odd color for a house, what if you had a house wall back here? Instead of all this brown material absorbing the sunlight, will it reflect anything back? Maybe not, but let's see. Yes, I know this looks crazy, but I figured I'd try it. Let's go see if we gained anything off of another reflective surface, aka a small wall back there. All right, let's see. Yeah, we did. We're up another 15 watts. I actually wasn't expecting anything there, but for sure, It's happening. And this has all been done within the matter of just a few minutes. Not that the sun's really moved. We're seeing consistent increases off of reflectivity. That's amazing. That's more than I was expecting. All right, so I have to crunch the numbers to get close, but we just made a quick 5 to 6% increase based on, just think about this, where you mount your bifacial panels. If you have a white house wall back here, no doubt there's going to be more reflectivity there and you're going to gain even more power. If you have concrete out here instead of more grass absorbing, well, your power is just going to go up. So that is free in the sense, it's not free because I added rock and did the things that I did. It's free power if you set your bifacial panels up in a location in your yard to where something behind that's already there that doesn't cost you nothing can reflect back to it. We're already seeing good results. All right, now the big question, can we go build something real quick? Sun's gonna move as we do this, put that reflective foil tape on there, which was very cheap, very affordable. Let's use some scrap lumber, make this as cheap as possible, and can we get an even bigger increase than what we're seeing here? My gut says yes, but I could be completely wrong. This is what I really wanted to test. All right, so we're playing around. It's still within the same few minutes. I have an old scrap piece of aluminum, not very shiny, but I angled it until I seen the reflection go across the ground and come back up partially on the back side of the panels. If you got an old hunk of metal laying around or find one at a scrapyard like this, let's see what we get out of that. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes since I started this test. There hasn't been much changes, at least in the sun. Look at that. Wow, now we're up to 712. That was a pretty significant increase. We started at 650, so we had picked up 60 watts right there. Oh man, so we're just bumping the percentage on up. Even old scrap piece of metal laying around just got me a free amount of power. A decent amount too if you really look at it. All right, and for those of you that are curious, I bought this off Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. This is called Reflective Bubble Wrap, Reflectix. They got it in all different sizes. I picked up a 24-inch. You can get it all the way up to 4 feet. This is 25 foot long. We're not even gonna need half of that. So the cost for what we're using today is probably only 10 or 12 bucks. Plus, those 2x4s are about $4 a piece right now. Let's say we just used up at least 3 of those. So you can add it up. This is very cheap. Let's see what we get out of it. All right, so since this is a solar episode, I want to give you all a little sneak peek on something that I've got going on. I've had a bunch of you email me for months asking about this once y'all heard that it was in the works. A lot of y'all have even went ahead and purchased this ahead of time, even though it just got announced. Yes, I have one. Here's a little sneak peek. All right, so if we come in the solar room here, never mind the mess, I'm running all kinds of tests right now, but y'all have been asking about this unit right here. We won't go into the specs because we'll have a big release video later on. So this is the new EcoFlow Delta Ultra. Yes, I have one for all of you that have been so curious and asking me about this unit. We will spill the beans on it here before long after I do all of my initial testing. This is also a good time to mention EcoFlow has a holiday sale going on right now. For those of you that are curious, I'll put all the information down in the description, but pretty big sale for Christmas time right here. Up to 58% off a lot of their items, and I'll put a discount code down there since they're a sponsor of the channel that'll save you another 5% off. And if you're curious about that new Delta Pro Ultra, I'll put a link down there as well. They're actually offering a early bird special. So if you buy a coupon, you wind up saving a pretty significant amount off of it whenever it launches in January. And yes, we're going to have a full launch video, all the information for that. So, but don't forget about the Christmas sale they have going on right now. You can save some really big money for end of year sales. All the information is down there in the description. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, it's about an hour and a half later. The sun has definitely moved. So let's go pull some new results. I have nothing back there reflecting to the panels other than the rock. So they are getting some reflection, but I don't have no metal or anything up. I'm curious about this test. I've got high hopes. All right. So we're currently pulling 660. Let's see here, let it settle out. 662, 664, 665. So you see the range we're in, just over 660. Watch out, buddy. All right, so let's prop this contraption up that I just built here in the back of the Ranger, adjust it. So this is just like a mirror. If I were to be adjusting it right now, you could see a shine going up and down on the trees. That's all I'm gonna do on the back side right here of these panels. I'm just gonna adjust this till I see it hitting somewhere in the panels, call it good. All right, looks like we're covering the panels decent, more toward the middle, maybe upper top. Let's go see. I know things like this may seem stupid, but I guess it's still the big kid in me. I love playing around with stuff like this. Just went from a little over 660 to, ooh, nice jump, 735 watts. That's a very nice increase right there. So let's talk about this for a second. It's an odd time of day. We can probably milk it for better than that. But if we permanently set this up, there's times a day you're gonna get more than that, times a day you're gonna get less than that. But you're gonna gain a certain amount averaged over a period of a day. Long story short, you'd have to crunch the numbers and know how many extra kilowatts or just watt hours that you gain in a day for what you invest in that. And again, it's just a few dollars, very, very cheap. Long story short, I don't have to do the math. What I'm going to gain day after day after day, if I decide to go with a permanent built system like this, it's going to absolutely pay me back in no time, especially if you have cost savings that you can calculate out for grid cost. This 100% will absolutely pay me back. That reflective stuff probably won't last forever, but I still got a whole another half a roll. If I can get a few years out of $10, $12, I have to go back and add up of the bubble wrap, great. Now here's something else we need to talk about. You could, what happens if you do a 36-inch system or a 48-inch system? We could play around with this so much. What happens if we put panels off to the side here to catch morning sun reflected back that way? We put a panel off on that side of this same reflective material. Now that we're going into the afternoon catching sun back, I think we could easily add 10% to our system. I think that's a good number on a very cheap investment. And by 10%, I mean total output of your panels. I think we can increase it 10% easily with stuff like this. So yes, this is non-pressure treated lumber, just propped up with a single kickstand. This is not gonna hold up in the wind. This is just us out here having fun, testing some theories, and it absolutely seems to be working. So if I decide to do this permanently, what I'll do is build something out of pressure treat and then have some permanent mounts in the ground that I can adjust this throughout the year as the sun moves. And we'll secure, say, the bubble wrap with some screws and washers to make sure stuff doesn't just rip off in the wind. But I wanted to always test a theory first before I invest any more time and effort into that. So for a little bit more time and a few more dollars, swapping everything over to pressure treat, which I may even have some scrap stuff to do it with, well, we could potentially build us a permanent system out here and increase our system by roughly 10%, maybe more, especially if we play with some of those side panels right there. All right, so what did we learn today? Yes, bifacial panels absolutely do work, but it's all based on the reflectivity of whatever surface is behind it. So no doubt in my mind, concrete, next to a house, next to a building, next to a tin structure. Think about that. What about a tin shop? It's not going to be as reflective as this, but it's going to have some good reflectivity to it. Doing some super cheap bubble wrap insulation right here. There's all kinds of cool creative things that we can do. I know some of y'all talked about, what about mirrors and things like that? Well, yeah, that's going to give some serious reflection back here. I'm personally not going to go the mirror route because, well, we're out here around rocks, we're outdoors, and I don't want nothing shattering, breaking, and having a heck of a mess to clean up. Please keep in mind, this test was not about trying to get maximum power out of these panels. It was testing, do they actually work with the bifacial claims from the rear? Yes, and a lot of y'all wanted me to test, does the surface they're on make a difference? We answered that 100% yes, and we're going to continue to play with it. All right, if you're curious about the eco-worthy panels, I'll put a link down in the description. If you're curious about the bubble wrap or anything else I use today that I purchased off of Amazon, I'll also put some links down there. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Y'all are the ones that had some suggestions about trying things out here for reflectivity. This is a fun little project. We'll continue to do it if I get enough requests for some future add-ons. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.